Hello, communists and housewives. Blessed be to call you communists and housewives sitting at home and watching me or wherever you may be. I have a story to tell you. It is a parable, and it is about something I learned or saw exemplified in recent circumstances in my own life, and I hope to immortalize it in the format of a fairy tale for you today. It is called The Mice. Once upon a time, there was a small herd of mice, and the small herd of mice had been kicked out of every house that they had tried to live in. They tried to live in the wainscoting, and they were kicked out by pokey, proddy objects that prodded them out of their nests and sent them packing onto another house. They tried to live in an attic, but the owner of that house bought a cat and chased them away. They were not wanted. They were not liked. So they could not settle. They had to hike. So the mice finally decided to go to a brick house that was far away from all the other houses. It was about 2,000 miles away from the other houses. And they moved into this house. And they tried to live discreetly and quietly. They didn't steal entire boxes of cereal. They just nibbled a few oats out of them. But mice being mice, and especially these mice because they were pink and turquoise in color, they were noticeable, and they sent the housewife a-screaming and standing on her chair in an old patriarchist cliche. Eek! Mice! So the owner of the house did not know what to do, and he thought, well, maybe I should just live with these mice. And if I treat them well, maybe they'll be nice to me and my wife. And so he would put out little crumbs of bread once a year. He would set out a little feast for the mice with crumbs of bread and little bits of meat and some fruit and just little things that he thought the mice would find attractive and pleasant to eat once a year. But you see, one year, he had become particularly fond of one special little mouse. And that special little mouse was orange, not turquoise and not pink. And that special little mouse had whiskers that instead of sticking out straight, they curled. And that one little orange mouse had fur that stood up straight on its ends. So the little mouse looked like a kind of porcupine mouse, but like a soft porcupine. It was so endearing, so cute, and a little strange. And the owner decided he was going to make a special meal of marshmallows and chocolate for this one little mouse this one year. Well, you see, when he went to go to the store to buy the chocolate, the store was very far in town. He had to go into town, and it was a very rural town, and no one had chocolate. They had to order the chocolate for him. Well, they put out this thing about ordering the chocolate, and because this town never had chocolate, and this town was basically like 5 families, the Edmondsons, who ran the newspaper, they thought, oh my God, there's an event happening in our town. And they published on the front page a story that this fellow was ordering chocolate, and we've never seen chocolate in this town. So it was a big thing for the town. They put out their little local, really, it was more just basically a blog on paper. But they put out that chocolate was being ordered to be brought to the town. Well, 2,000 miles away, an exterminator got wind of this, and the exterminator drove all the way over to see the guy in the house. And he said, you have to get rid of the mice. They'll poop everywhere, and they will chew through the wiring, so your electricity will go funny. And then he said things about the mice that weren't very nice and weren't very true. He said, the mice will nibble the toes off your children, especially if you have babies. The younger they are, the mice will nibble their toes off and maybe chew off their fingers. They're rabid, ferocious animals. They're diabolical. They're demons in fur. Well, the guy said, it's not been my experience of them. I've been around them for some years, and my wife has finally gotten used to them. She doesn't scream and stand on the chair. But the guy said, you have to get rid of them because everyone else in your little town, all the other five people, they are going to object to you having mice. They're going to blame you for infesting their houses with these mice if you don't get rid of the mice in your house. And then the man who was the exterminator said, I will be waiting for your answer. I will even help you exterminate them. And the man and his wife sat down at dinner that night and talked to each other about the situation. They thought, we really have no choice. We have to get rid of the mice because we don't want the neighbors thinking badly about us. So the man, who couldn't find it in his heart to hire the exterminator to kill the mice, he leaned down on the floor next to one of the little mouse holes in the wainscoting, and he whispered into the mouse hole, and he said, little mice, especially orange one. I can't believe I have to have this conversation with you, but I do. I must ask you to leave. And if you can't leave, I'm going to have the exterminator come and make you leave. And I don't want that to happen. So please just leave of your own accord. Please be nice about it and just slip away into the night and let us just live in peace with our house and our neighbors, continuing to think good thoughts about us. Well, the mice said, we've been living here for some years and you have been used to us. We don't understand why now all of a sudden that because there's this exterminator like telling you that we're a bad creature, that you have to get rid of us. What's up with that? And did you know that we have been eating all of the tick eggs? And so you haven't had any tick and your children hadn't had any ticks. And did you know we've actually been chewing up all the weeds in your garden without touching your vegetables? We've been helping your garden grow strong and full so you'll have a lot of lovely food to eat. Did you know that? Did you know that we scamper under your beds because we see that your wife doesn't know how to clean under the furniture very well? So we scamper under your beds and under your chairs and we pick up the dust balls and we roll them into our holes and make them into nests so you don't have to have dust under your beds and under your chairs. Did you know we do these things? And the man said, well, I kind of suspected you did. I guess I didn't really pay it much mind. And then the neighbors came over because they'd seen the exterminator hanging around their tiny town. And they came over and they said, what happened with this exterminator? And the man explained about the mice. And he said, for the sake of all your houses, I have to get rid of the mice. And they said, the sake of our houses? Don't you realize that these mice eat the eggs of ticks that try to drink our blood? They weed our gardens by choosing on the weeds and not the vegetables. And did you know that there's some of these mice living in all of our houses and they clean under the furniture with their furry little tails? They chase away the dust balls and make them into their nests in the walls. And you want to get rid of all of our mice? We love our pink and turquoise mice, and we especially love that orange one. She's weird, but she's awfully entertaining. And so the farmer thought, this is what I will do. I will tell the exterminator I don't want to get rid of the mice. So he went out the next day and told the exterminator, and the exterminator got very angry. And he had a violent look on his face. And the exterminator caught one of the mice, a pink one. And that poor mouse lost their life. And the exterminator took the skin and the head of the pink mouse and put them on a pole outside the man's house as a warning sign to all other mice that they should not come here and they should leave. put a little sign on it written in mouse language that said, "Leave. No one wants you." Well, the mice saw this, and what the mice did is the mice continued to chew the weeds in the gardens. They continued to clean under the furniture. They just didn't make themselves so apparent anymore. But they talked to all their friends. They called their friends on their little mouse cell phones and told them what had happened. And pretty soon, green mice and purple mice and red mice, blue mice, gold mice, black mice, and white mice were all showing up, coming from across the land to show up in the man's house as a move of solidarity and camaraderie. They said, "We support you. No one's getting rid of you. This is your town. You were here nibbling on the wood that became the planks that built the houses." And there were so many hundreds of mice that the town was awash in mice in all these colors. The mice would scamper around in little lines, and the red ones would go first, and then an orange one would follow. Then they had a yellow mouse from, it's about 50 miles away. The yellow mice came. They had a yellow mouse go next, and the green mouse would follow him. There was a blue mouse that always followed the green mouse, and the purple mouse always goes where the blue mouse goes. And they would run around like these colorful little lines, chewing on the weeds in the gardens, cleaning under the furniture in the houses. Well, the farmer and his wife said to each other, "Oh no, we meant to get rid of these mice, so we brought this exterminator and he did this very terrible thing. And now look, there's more mice here than ever before. Clearly, we made the wrong choice in hiring this exterminator and listening to his bad advice." And so the farmer did the wise thing. The farmer took down the awful, grim token of the pink mouse's skin and skull. And the farmer went to the mice and said, "Here is what's left of your companion mouse. I'm going to give you my living room with the beautiful carpet from my great aunt, so that you can have a proper ceremony to send off your companion that our unfortunate exterminator did such a horrible thing to. I am so sorry we ever listened to the exterminator. We will never do that again. We will talk to you mice instead." And so they struck a deal. They sat down, they had a meeting, and they struck a deal. And the mice said, "Look, we will not scare any of you. We will mostly stay out of sight. If you don't want your beds to be cleaned underneath with the dust bunnies, we'll let them pile up. But we will continue to eat the weeds in your garden because they're actually filled with vitamin B12, and we need that. So we're going to eat the weeds in your garden, but we won't touch your vegetables." And the farmer said, "I didn't know you did all these things. I am so impressed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant a field of corn alongside all the other things I grow. But I'm going to set aside a whole part of my field, a whole section of my field, for you to always have corn to eat. We'll let the ears fall to the ground and dry out so that you can have them to gnaw on in winter." And he kept his promise. And the mice had a ready source of food, and the mice continued to nibble away the weeds in the garden, and the mice were seldom seen in the houses. They kept their end of the deal too, so that no one had to stand on a chair and squeal at the mice being visible. And in the end, this weird little community of people and farmers and mice got along extraordinarily well. In fact, some say that community got on better than others who chased their mice away, because that community had well-weeded gardens. And so their cauliflower and their broccoli and their asparagus had no weeds to compete with, and they grew taller and bigger and rounder and more tasty than any other towns, because the town learned that creatures who are extremely different can actually live in harmony and create good for all. You may wonder what happened to the exterminator. Well, the position of exterminator was an elected position in his town, you see, and because of what he didn't have a very good reputation anymore, and so no one voted for him in the next election, and he was no longer the exterminator. Boo-hoo. That is the story of the mice. And the moral of the story? Well, I want you to write that in the comments below this video. If you ask me what I think the moral is, I think it's smart to listen to the people living in your walls. I think it's smart to talk to them and negotiate and find a way that people can live together, even if they're as different as humans and mice. I think that if we live and let live, everyone can have a prosperous, contented life. I'm Sister Unity. That was my teensy little tale. Hope you enjoyed.